This is the first time I've actually hit, connected to Facebook, so I'm a little nervous. But I've been told it's very easy.
It has notified us that we are now streaming live on Facebook.
Okay, cool. I see it, Alex, on Step Up's Facebook.
Oh, good. That's exactly what I want to hear. All right. Well, let's see. Here we are. Okay. So, welcome again to everyone who's joined us on Zoom here on Zoom or here on Facebook. Kayla, can you confirm you're seeing the right page? Are you seeing anything?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just thank you so much for your time today. I know we have people in different states, some people in different time zones, so I really appreciate like all of our guests, all of our speakers, and all the other guests that have joined us. We're going to be talking a lot about, building your career today and how volunteering and AmeriCorps Vista can do that. And we'll talk about later on with an HR professional about, what it looks like, what it looks like to build your career in the middle of this pandemic. So a quick recap of our guest speakers. Now my slides aren't moving. So we have two alumni on the line, Bailey and Bethany, AmeriCorps Vistas, who've served here in Savannah at Georgia Legal Services and Chatham Emergency Management Agency. We have two current members on here. We have our Vista leader, Kayla, and a Vista member at Park Place Outreach, Kylie. Lastly, we have April Levy, who is the Human Resource Talent Manager at Chatham County Government. Well, at Chatham County. I guess I didn't need to say government piece in there. So this is going to be a very conversational piece. We're hearing a lot from our alumni, our current members about what AmeriCorps means to them and what volunteering means to your career. So I'm going to take my screen off and we will just jump in and get started with our alumni, Bailey and Bethany. I have Bailey going first, but whoever wants to jump in and can feel free to do so.
Yeah, I can go ahead and talk since I'm first.
Wonderful.
So I was an AmeriCorps Vista at Georgia Legal Services, which is a nonprofit law firm. They provide legal services to low-income members of, I think it was an 11-county region, obviously based in Savannah. What I did there, I was the outreach and development coordinator type person. So a lot of what I did was community outreach, essentially just educating people on what services were available to them, and even just educating them that things that were happening to them were wrong. A lot of people, especially with like landlord-tenant disputes, didn't even know that what was happening to them was wrong. So we were able to come in and educate them on that and then provide legal representation to them as well. So that was a lot of what I did there. And then when I left AmeriCorps, I moved back to Texas, and I am now a second-year student at Texas A&M School of Law. Super fun. Obviously, AmeriCorps had a huge role to play in that. The lawyers that I worked with while I was there are like 99% of the reason I decided to go to law school. I really wanted to follow in their footsteps and do what they do. I'm a public interest law fellow at my school, so I am obviously very interested in doing public interest work. When I graduate, I have interned with the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office, and I am currently working with the Police Oversight Office with the Fort Worth Police Department, helping to write policy, procedure, all of that fun stuff that helps keep police officers and citizens safe. So it's been a huge, amazing experience, and I really don't think that I would have even ever considered going to law school if it hadn't been for AmeriCorps. And I certainly wouldn't have understood the impact that public interest law has and the importance of it in our community, both, in Texas, Georgia, all 50 states. So, I mean, I credit AmeriCorps immensely for where I'm at right now in my life.
I'm on mute. Sorry about that, guys. What does when do you graduate? What is the next? What is the future?
So I will graduate in 2022. So I am just at the halfway mark right now. What I'm hoping to do, I'm hoping to be a prosecutor when I graduate. We'll see how that plays out. Could all change between now and then, but right now that's the goal.
Question for you, Billy. Aside from really sparking your sense of purpose and direction, which is awesome, totally awesome, can you talk about any transferable skills that you see that you were able to pick up while you were doing that kind of outreach and connection that's going to help you now, even as you intern and fellow, and then maybe into your career?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest skills I learned was obviously community engagement. We all think that we know how to public speak and we know how to talk to people, but it really is a skill that you have to learn. And that was a big part of what I learned, especially talking to people who are from different backgrounds, who have different political beliefs, maybe, we come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, all these different things. And it was really helpful to me to be able to understand how to meet those people where they were at and engage with them in a way that worked for both of us. So that's been a huge, huge, huge skill for me. Really, other than that, I learned everything from time management to handling finances, because, when you're AmeriCorps, you're not rich by any means. So I learned a lot of actual life skills while I was there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot. I mean, something we didn't talk about is like just an overall view of what Vista is. And I mentioned at the beginning, we talked about volunteering and really serving your community. But AmeriCorps Vista is this really unique place where you're serving for a year of your life, full-time, 40 hours a week at a nonprofit or government agency, and you're working at a very high level to alleviate poverty. And so as Bailey was describing her experiences at Georgia Legal Services, she was placed at Georgia Legal. We'll hear from a bunch of other agencies of how they served and how they alleviated poverty in their role. But it's also a tricky thing because it's a part of the AmeriCorps system. So you do get a monthly stipend, but it's quite a low stipend, and it's quite a sacrifice that you have to make, as all of the alumni and current Vistas can know, that it's even lower than minimum wage. It's set at the federal poverty limit. So you really have to have like a strong passion to serve and to, gain those skills to become a Vista. And we'll definitely, talk more about like the overall impacts of Vista in our community and what that looks like. Maybe now we can move to, we will soon, sorry. We'll move now to Bethany's experience, who was with the Chatham Emergency Management Agency. Bethany.
Awesome. Hi, guys. Thank you. So my experience really actually started before I began my Vista. I've known most of my life that I wanted to go into community service in the emergency field. As a kid, I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then during college, I realized that my passion was really in community education around disasters. And so as I adjusted my college path and came to emergency management, I got out into the work field and was like, I can't get a job. I have 3 years of part-time experience, but everyone wants 1 year of full-time. And so I prayed about it. I was like, where am I supposed to go? And I'm from Spokane, Washington, way on the other side of the country. And this job came up for Chatham County Emergency Management Agency, really doing my dream job of what I was thinking I was being called to do, with community education, focused on working in those communities that are higher poverty and teaching about things that they can do to prevent damage during storms or to make their homes or their families more resilient to storms, along with that long-term recovery effort from Hurricanes Irma and Matthew that came 2 years before my Vista term. And so when that opportunity came, I was like, okay, 2 weeks later, didn't know where I was going to live. So thank you, Alex, because you helped me find a place while I was driving across the country. And I got placed in the Chatham Emergency Management Agency, and it was really instrumental in making the path for where I am now. During my time with SEMA, like I said, we worked with community education. We actually created multiple presentations around hurricane preparedness, tornadoes, severe weather. We also worked with the community emergency response team, which is the CERT team, and training community members across our country on how, or not across our country, across our county, sorry about that, across the county, on how they can be proactive in preparing for disaster and how they can respond following a disaster to be a neighbor helping neighbor and to serve. It gave me a lot of tools between time management to public speaking, to learning to budget, as you guys mentioned, which I'm proud of because that actually helps us to better understand our communities that are in poverty. In the disaster world, we always tell someone to build a kit, make a plan, and be prepared. But how do you build a kit for food in the future when you don't have food tonight? And so having that perspective and being able to think of what community resources might be able to help those in that community get to the point where they can start to build their kit one day at a time or 1 week at a time, I think allowed us to move forward in being able to really address those that are still struggling from Irma and Matthew and help them prepare for storms to come in the future. Now, from my Vista experience, when my Vista ended, I was kind of like, where do I want to go next? And it was pretty clear for me that I was looking at going to the Red Cross, which is where I am now. I am a disaster program specialist for the American Red Cross, and I actually work with community education and outreach and with our local disaster response for home fires and smaller weather events, along with supporting national operations. And so my time at SEMA really prepared me for coming into this role. I actually got to partner and work with the Red Cross quite a bit with youth education in our low-income areas and with our community, well, it's called Cedric, but it is community, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget. Basically, it's our long-term recovery group for recovery from Irma and Matthew. And we sat at a table. It started with a table of around 5 people. And by the end, I think we had around 12 people at the table that are different organizations working on that long-term recovery from hurricane relief for those that just need that extra hand up and that extra help recovering long-term. And so really though, my time at SEMA was instrumental to getting to where I am now. And now it's great because I also, in my role, we work with government partners, with fire departments, with EMAs, and getting to a point where I can understand where they're coming from when we're talking about hard situations, and then they know where I'm coming from. And so we can really work better together because of that experience.
What was it like? Can you tell me about your decision to move, that big move across country? I know that you mentioned you were really looking for this like really particular field of work, and it came up on the other side of the country. But what was that like looking at Vista positions? Just like walk us through like that process, and then moving, of course.
Yeah, so that process for me started with looking at the 43 jobs, I'll say actual jobs, as in had a salary and an income, and having every single one of them say you need 1 year of experience. And I had this day where I sat on my counter and I had looked at AmeriCorps before and was kind of hesitant because of the income side of it. I mean, I had a little bit in savings, but I also had a chunk of student loans and balancing that. And so I kind of put it on the back burner. And then I I put that on the back burner, and then I sat at my counter. I got that like third email saying 1 year of experience. And I was, I'm a person of faith. So I was like, Jesus, help a girl out here. I don't know what to do. Tell me where to go and I'll be there. And within a couple minutes, I got this email notification about a disaster position, which there hadn't been any posted when I looked about a month earlier. And so I set it up to do the notifications to let me know if something came up in that field. And it came up and I looked at it and I went, this is what I want. And I'd worked with community emergency response teams before going to school. My college in Iowa had one. And then I worked with a similar team in Washington State. And so I had a lot of passion for the work that they did. And I talked to my parents. I was like, this is where I feel I need to be. And they were like, well, you should apply for it. And I'm like, good, I already did. And I had an interview set up 2 days later. And 2 days after that, I was kind of nervous afterwards. I got called and I did a second interview with the director, Dennis Jones, and just really knew it was going to be a good fit at that point. And so the following day I got the call offering the position and I said yes. And then it hit. I don't know where I'm living when I get there. And I'm out of town this next week. So I was out of town for an emergency management training, came back, was home for 3 days, packed everything I could into my 97 Camry along with my mom and her suitcase because they weren't a fan of me driving that far by myself. And sorry, there's a fire truck going by, but if it's living by the fire station. But my mom and we hit the road, and as we're driving, I went, I still don't know where I'm living when I get there, but I can find a couch to sleep on, you know, and had looked at some apartments, had looked at some like the roommates.com. And I remember Alex called me and you were like, so we have a Vista who just finished their project, who bought a house and is looking for some roommates. You should give her a call. Or somewhere around those lines, or she called me because you mentioned that I was looking for something, and I ended up being able to rent a room with a house of other Vistas. We were all in different projects, in different timelines on our Vista service, but all there with the dedicated goal of serving the community, which I think was a big benefit. I think if I would have lived with someone who didn't understand the work that we were doing, it would have been more challenging to have gone through some of the financial difficulties of doing Vista, which I say difficulties, it wasn't difficult in the sense of I always had food in the cupboard. It was difficult in the sense of I grew up with a bit of privilege, and when you're doing your own Vista, you don't necessarily have that. And so it gave me that perspective, which again, I think was helpful during my Vista and is helpful today in the work I do still with disasters and with communities.
Yeah. And actually, Bailey and Bethany, both of you, like some of our Vistas, maybe about half of us, including myself when I served, we made this move to a different state. And that's something that I think is really cool with Vista. There's some small benefits, of course, some benefits about why people join, but one of them is they support you in relocating. So I don't know if
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
They covered like the gas and hotel and the cost of moving out there.
And so it was like, I don't know, like I said, if you guys want to talk more about like what drive it was, well, Bethany, maybe yours was more about like you were really interested in the job itself. For me, I was like interested in exploring and trying something new and going somewhere new and just like an adventure, right? I don't know, Bailey, what was your decision to make? Because that's quite a move too from Dallas, right?
Yeah. So I guess I knew when I graduated college that I wanted to be involved with AmeriCorps. I had gone on one of those alternative spring breaks at my university, and we had been in New Orleans, worked with a program that had employed a bunch of AmeriCorps Vista members. And after the end of that week, I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do exactly what they're doing. Love the message behind it. So I knew I wanted to do AmeriCorps. I had absolutely no idea what else I wanted to do with my life beyond that. So I really just kind of applied to a whole bunch of places. And when I interviewed with Georgia Legal, I was like, oh, wait, this is kind of exactly what I want to be doing. This sounds perfect. And, you know, I had never been to Savannah before. I had been to Atlanta. That was as close as I'd gotten. Never been to Savannah. They offered me the job and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Why not? So I packed everything up, and about maybe 2 weeks later, I was moving 1,500 miles away. And, you know, I have no regrets about it. It was the best decision I ever made. So, yeah.
That's awesome to hear, even in hindsight, right? Like, I didn't know it was so far. Yeah, that's such a cool thing that I was in the same boat too, where I just kind of was like, yeah, like let's do it. I think something that Vista offers is like an escape, and maybe escape's not the best word, but like an option to like try a different path, or like if you don't really know what you want to do. I've seen Vistas in all stages of their life. One who's like on the other end of retired, she's been retired for a few years, but she still wants to keep involved in her community. And so this gives her, you know, a meaningful way to stay connected and to still do good. But then I've seen Vistas who, like, I think a lot of us share in this room right now, where we were like just out of college, like trying to figure out like, where are we going to be? What are we going to do? And Vista like gives you such a wide variety of like figuring out what you can do and how much is out there. It's almost like a year of interning and shadowing all piled up into one. And then I've seen some Vistas who are also like sort of like mid-career, who like maybe take this opportunity as like a way to pivot. And I think that we're seeing that a lot in COVID. People are rethinking like what their job looks like, what that means for them. So like there's a lot of benefit of like just this like 1 year service of how you can sort of change things up. Kylie and Kayla, I know, Kayla, you've been a Vista in the past. This is your second year. Maybe, and you guys are both local, so it's a different thing. It's sort of a different conversation of us three talking about moving like over 1,000 miles. What was your biggest draw to this, and what inspired you to become a Vista?
I guess I'll go. So I was a recent grad. At the time, I got my degree in PR from Georgia Southern. And so I was kind of in that phase where I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something in PR, but I was having the same difficulty as Bethany, where I would look at these jobs and they were like, you have to have at least a year of experience. And it's like, well, where am I going to get this experience from? And then the coordinator that was in the Vista position at the time, she referred me to a site that was Park Place, and she said, you should apply for this. And so I did, and it was like a phone interview, and then I did an in-person interview, and then like a couple days later, I got the job. So yeah, it was amazing for me.
So how I got, like, weirdly enough, the single good thing from COVID was this job for me. I moved to Savannah last year I graduated from University of Kentucky, and I knew I had interned with nonprofit all through college. So I was like, I just want to move somewhere where I can just get in and dive into local nonprofit. I just want to be really involved in a tight-knit community. So Savannah was perfect. I came down here and I actually interned for Savannah Music Festival, which is also a nonprofit. Interned for 9 months until March came and COVID came. So we had to cancel the festival. I was let go. So I worked with my boss from SMF, and she referred me to this position. She was like, don't worry, Kylie, like, we're going to find you a job in nonprofit. So it was kind of a long process, Alex. With everything with COVID, this was the first year that I think they were all trying to deal with the hiring process, and, everyone's all making adjustments everywhere. So it was kind of a tedious process with COVID, but it worked out. I knew that I wanted to stay local. I knew I wanted to work for a nonprofit, preferably one that helps at-risk kids. So this was perfect. So everything for me, oddly enough, kind of fell into place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of our more seasoned alumni both Kayla and Kylie are maybe about a little less than halfway through your Vista service. Is that about right? What would you say for them as they move on to the second half of their service and turn to a career?
Let's say to start looking forward now. It's hard to look forward at where your future career is going to be when you're like, I can't quite apply for jobs yet because I still have 6 months left. But start thinking about where do you want to be location wise, if you want to stay in Savannah. I relocated to Knoxville, Tennessee, and I love Knoxville in my position here, but I think Savannah still has a large chunk of my heart. So it's a special community there. But think about where you want to go next and start looking at how you can write your Vista experience on your resume. I knew I did so much in my Vista that trying to put that on a resume took a lot longer than I thought it was going to, because you really have to weed out what you want to shine through for that next position. And so I just say start planning now, but also don't rush too far ahead, because you have so much time left to enjoy the work that you're doing.
Do you guys, so we talked a lot about how like this can build your resume and like take you into a new career. I think that can be true for a lot of volunteer experiences. I think volunteering fundamentally is like such a unique thing that you can give part of your time and who you are to these nonprofits or these agencies. Even if it is not a AmeriCorps Vista term of service, which is a year, it's quite a commitment, but any sort of volunteering, I think really can just build, figure out what you want, build your resume. And I know with COVID, it's really hard. And like what volunteer experiences look like locally here in Savannah. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that conversation, or, what that looks like in COVID in your communities, maybe in Dallas or Knoxville.
I know for us, being with Red Cross, I work a lot with volunteers. 90% of our workforce is volunteers. And right now, the biggest thing is we actually have the unique opportunity where before there wasn't a large amount of opportunity for virtual work and virtual input. And now because of COVID, that is. And so there's opportunities in youth education and adult education. And there's opportunities in disaster response where you can be serving clients out in Colorado on the ground if you feel safe and if you're able to, but you're also able to serve and to connect with those while they're in need from your location at home. And so I think that in some ways it has helped us to connect people across the country and to allow for opportunities for those that may not have been able to get up and go in person to an event or go in person to a disaster where that's now an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Kayla, were you?
Oh, I was just going to say it may be important to note that you can teleserve as a Vista as well. And we do have some Vistas that are teleserving right now. If you want to elaborate on that, Alex.
That's a great piece. So typically we talked a lot about like relocation and what AmeriCorps means, what it means to serve as an AmeriCorps Vista. And traditionally that means you pack up your 97 Pontiac. No, it wasn't a Pontiac. I was trying to remember the make of your car, Bethany. And you move across state lines. But right now, in response to COVID, to be an AmeriCorps Vista, you can serve 100% virtually. We have a Vista right now who's serving here in Savannah, Georgia virtually, but she's still back home in Maryland. So AmeriCorps Vista is so cool because it's nationwide. There's places in Hawaii and Alaska, here in Georgia. There's about 8,000 AmeriCorps Vistas serving on any given day. So if it is something that you're really interested in, you can find a place to serve. And like Bethany or maybe Bailey, who have a really particular focus and interest and they want to go into a certain field, this is a great opportunity, a great time to do that because you have this virtual capacity, right? We do have two open service AmeriCorps Vista placements coming up in the next like month and a half. And those are similarly, you can serve virtually or, you can make the choice to move to and serve at your site. I can elaborate more on that a little bit later. I did want to sort of shift into the idea we were talking about, like, Bethany, thank you for elaborating on like the Red Cross volunteers, how that connects you to people, how just COVID is really opening up doors we didn't know existed in terms of volunteering and working from home and all this sort of thing. So at this time, I'd like to bring it over to you, April. And I don't know if you need to share a screen or anything, just let me know. I can make you host.
Yeah, no. Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm so inspired hearing all of these wonderful stories and all of the, the good and wonderful experiences that Vista is able to provide. I'm happy to hear that you said people of all age levels and career stages join. I mean, I'm invigorated. I want to join. Like many of you, I've just relocated to Savannah, so for a traditional job. And it was a choice of my family and I that we come down to the South and forego those winters in New Jersey. And it's really been wonderful. It's lovely. And I can see why, Bethany, this would have a special place in your heart. So, anytime you're back, stop by Chatham County government and, we can see if we can get some of that Savannah hospitality back going. Anyway, just changing direction a little bit from an HR perspective, I just wanted to really talk about how COVID right now is affecting careers and professional growth of people. Myself, my family had been affected. I have a son who's a recent college graduate who had a job all lined up. After graduation in May, the pandemic hit and suddenly no job. So, what do you do? How do you maintain your motivation to get through this time frame? Not only are we, having recent graduates, we're having experienced workers who are being laid off and furloughed. The job market is shrinking. Unemployment is increasing. It's really, some people are becoming very distressed. There's high levels of anxiety. There's a lot of depression going around. And what's, really important, and I think is, key also what y'all are doing as Vistas is, maintaining some kind of semblance and calmness for the areas that you're serving. And that's really what us as employees and people in the world today is we've just feel like we've lost our sense of control over our own processes, things that we had taken for granted on a day-to-day basis. Oh, I hate commuting to work. Suddenly, people would give anything to even have a job, never mind commuting to work. So this is, somewhat of our reality now. This is our norm. And initially back in March, we were like, okay, we'll get through this time and things will start changing. But, what we need to do is actually accept the situation that we're in, and rather than have it weigh us down and stress us and give us anxiety. And of course, we all know we have to pay our bills. This really is an opportunity for us to upskill and reskill the competencies that we have, whether that be going back to school, taking a certificate course. There's a million classes that are offered online right now. A lot of them are free of charge. Some of them are for nominal fees. But now is the time, if you had wanted to take a look at a new career, that you can start educating yourself and getting that experience. I know, Kayla, you were saying it was a little disheartening when you had to have a year of experience for a certain job. And if no one's willing to give you that opportunity, how are you supposed to get that year of experience? I don't want to discount volunteering at all, because although it's not necessarily, a paid position, that you are getting experience from that as well. So again, we all do need to pay our bills, but if there is an opportunity for you to grab some money to get a gig job and, pay your bills, you should look into volunteer opportunities or, ways to upskill or reskill. you know, people are saying now that the restaurant industry, you know, dining in is a thing of the past, and hostesses and waitresses and servers, right? A lot of those people are out of work right now, but you should look into reskilling yourself. These are capabilities that you can use as, you know, a medical greeter, perhaps. How often do we walk into a building or a business where they're standing there with the thermometer taking your temperature, right? It's the same type of a people skill, but you're just using it for a different purpose. And by doing that, you're also building your own competencies as well as your resume. And we have to look for all of the positive opportunities that we can at this point. You know, as more people are staying home, they're looking for ways to get themselves entertained. So there are businesses like Home Depot or Lowe's that are just absolutely booming right now, and they're hiring. I just checked the national outlook today, and Home Depot has 24,000 jobs that are available. Or what about online shopping? They need customer service representatives. They need delivery drivers. Amazon's business is booming, right? There's 165,000 jobs that are available from Amazon alone. So as we are all growing up and going through our educational opportunities, or choosing to go into a trade, or choosing to, you know, get life's experiences, it doesn't always go as planned. And you have to have the agility to be able to pivot. And in order to succeed, you need to reinvent yourself and recreate these different ways that you can stay fulfilled and effective during this economy. So, you know, there are other things. IT is on the rise, of course, as we're all using this technology now. This time last year, it was not as popular as it is now. If I could have purchased stock in Zoom or WebEx, you know, hindsight, I wish I would have done that. Or what about the food stores or the pharmacies, right? Maybe you've never considered a medical field, and now's the time where you can learn how to be a pharmacy tech. And these are all skills that are not only able to, you know, get your foot in the door now, but ways that you can build a career. And, you know, especially if you are liking volunteering and helping other people, and, you know, maybe the medical field is a way to go. So there are a lot of options out there. And we have to remember to keep ourselves mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. Sometimes that's overlooked a lot. And it's okay to give yourself a break if things aren't going your way. Sometimes it is best to just take a step back and say, you know, what's going on? Maybe I should reassess. So, you know, that was just a big, very quick, very high level overview of what's going on. Pretty much common sense. We see it all around us. But I did want to touch a little bit about people who are still working, potentially in an office environment, and what that's like, keeping socially distant at work, ensuring that all of the areas are properly sanitized, and that we're all protecting ourselves and our clientele that may come into the office. You know, it is difficult maintaining that 6-foot separation, always wearing our masks. I'm happy to see we are all in separate rooms now, so it's not necessary that we have masks on, but, you know, keep in mind that everyone is not always like us or has all their faculties. I've come across people who are hard of hearing, who to hear somebody, they need to read lips, and they can't do that now because they have face masks on. So, you know, it is challenging when you're in an office environment and you may not know everyone's limitations around you. So you really have to be empathetic and just try to assess a situation and see what's going on around you and have compassion. Another scenario, which is popping up a lot, and a lot of companies are moving to remote work full time, is a hybrid type of a scenario, which is popping up a lot of opportunity for new jobs, actually, in the management of a remote work environment. That would be if you're in the office 2 days a week and you're working from home, or a remote location for 3 days a week. So there's a lot of interaction that goes on between the employee and the coworkers, or the supervisor or the management. How do you manage a remote team? How do you ensure your colleague is actually working when they're working? And is everyone being as productive as they are able to be? And are you able to serve your constituents as well as you would if you were in the office? So there's a whole science behind all of those operations. And there's, you know, a new field opening up in HR of remote virtual management. There's a bunch of legal issues that have arisen. Is the home office covered by workman's compensation? If you trip over your vacuum as you're approaching your desk, you know, is that workman's comp or is that your own homeowner's policy? So, you know, even legal issues are arising, and there are just, you know, so many things, so many silly things, in as much as should your company pay for your toilet paper? Because they would be providing that if you were in the office, right? So now we're looking at the hospitality industry. It's just such a variety, and the world is ever so changing. And, you know, if you are in a hybrid situation, or if you are in a remote situation and you want to shine, make sure you know your technology, make sure you know how to use your technology, be accountable, be reachable, and, you know, do and say what you're going to do in a timely manner. And we will all get through this, you know, guaranteed one way or another. Hopefully everyone will remain healthy and as we forge forward. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about professional growth, because, you know, sometimes you're at a job a year, 2 years, and you're like, oh, I was in line for that promotion, and all of a sudden COVID has hit and people are losing jobs left and right, and you don't want to be selfish worrying about your own promotion, but you are concerned about your own self-professional development. So in that scenario, I would just suggest reaching out to your manager and seeing how you can support this additional effort right now, because there are a variety of scenarios going on behind the scenes that people don't really know how to facilitate. So if you can do some research online and figure out how to set up a daily reporting system to track people's work habits or something like that, that you can be extra accountable, that will also give you, you know, a thumbs up, extra support, and should really portray you as a team player. So when the economy gets back into whatever new normal we have and people start progressing in their careers, you want to make sure that you're one of the ones that maintain in the forefront of your supervisor's mind as somebody who is willing to pitch in and help out. So, you know, in summary, just really give yourselves a break. Look to, you know, reconfigure your career, look for additional educational opportunities, continue to volunteer if you can, look to mentor people, and have empathy and compassion for others. And, you know, we will get through this together.
April, I think some great things that you touched on, like that I just wanted to reiterate. Well, I don't know if you said this in so many words, but I think we're seeing a time of this new wave of everyone using technology really so heavily that we're kind of good at it. And like, if we just use it and just a little bit of practice, like we can do things that, and I can only speak for myself, but I can do things that terrified me before. But just exposing yourself to using different tools, it's really quite amazing what you can do with a little bit of practice. And along the same vein, I've heard some colleagues take on certification courses virtually online during this time because they had the capacity to do so. Either their current employer allowed them to, or maybe they had a part-time situation, they had some time, but they were like some of us have been sort of forced to do, to learn something like Zoom very quickly. They were using the time to grow, to learn in whatever field that they were in, because so much is offered online. You can do these sort of short certification courses. So they're out there, and whatever field you're in, you know, try and connect with a mentor or someone who's in a similar field. And I think we'd all be surprised at how much there is out there online. Another piece that I really wanted to touch back on was this idea, and I think we started talking about this in the beginning, of branding yourself and marketing yourself, and this idea of like having an elevator pitch. You know, a lot of us are current Vistas or Vista alumni, so that becomes part of our brand and like who we are and how we got to where we are currently. And just like having, you know, it's hard to talk really good about yourself and to say what you do well, but I think it's definitely very necessary. And just sort of, thinking about how do you brand yourself? How do you, I don't know if anyone else wanted to jump in on that elevator pitch and branding yourself marketing piece. I think we have a lot of experts in that world here. So if you do, feel free to, unmute yourself.
Well, I was going to say, you only get one shot to make that first impression. So you should practice in front of the mirror, just know who you are and know your audience and be able to talk about yourself in, 2 to 3 sentences to get your point across. I'm sorry, it's dinner time for my dog.
Also, I think with the elevator pitch, you want to end with a call to action. April, I don't know if you want to add to that, but it's very important that, as she said, have some succinct talking points about yourself, what you're good at, what you do, be able to do that in a nutshell. And at the end of it, give a call to action. Say, I would love to set up some time to talk to you more about how this may assist you in whatever area you acknowledged or highlighted for yourself. Or if you have, 10 or 15 minutes, I can tell you more about this experience. Or, use it in a way that connects you and makes you accessible to the person that you're talking to. And always be open to, doing it differently. As Alex said, we're all learning new skills. So, say I could, book a Zoom call or meet you on Teams or, for a quick cup of coffee on Teams or, but just always end with a good call to action.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more in that regard, because sometimes you think you hit the mark and you haven't, and then you walk away from that person and you're like, what just happened there? And it really didn't hit. Important also is to remember people's names. So if you introduce yourself, it's, hi, my name is April Alexandra. It's so lovely to meet you. Alexandra, are you available Tuesday at 4? I can set up a Zoom for us. If you use someone's name 2 or 3 times during that introductory period, chances are you will remember it more, and it will flow naturally when you see them the next time. Also, having a call to action is very important because it really summarizes the reason you just gave that spiel about yourself. Whether you are just a brand new employee looking for a job, or you're somebody who's seasoned, or somebody in college, or you're just looking to make a new friend. It's just, something that should roll off your tongue very naturally. Hi, my name is April. I'm in HR. Oh, I would love to mentor your admin. I heard that she's looking to enter the HR field. Meanwhile, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of my next step, right? What am I looking to gain out of this conversation? So I give a little and I would get a little. And then we have a nice relationship. I always do like to follow up with, I'm a little old fashioned, a handwritten personal note. It's lovely when someone gets one in the mail because it's a surprise these days, actually.
Yes.
Minimally an email or even a text message just to say, hey, I really enjoyed today's conversation. But you don't want to be overbearing. I've gotten those messages, and I'm sure you all have as well, on LinkedIn, where people are just so persistent. They get your name and they go in for the attack. And that's not what you want to do. You want to be genuine. You want to be genuine in today's world.
I think.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say that a good thing also to do in the elevator pitch, besides the call to action, is to mention something about the company or the person that you're speaking to if you've done your research. Use the keywords that they're providing in the job description or about themselves in their mission and vision statement. So, if the mission and vision is to, reach seniors ages, 65 and older or whatever, be able to articulate how you connect fundamentally to their mission and vision statement in your elevator pitch, and be able to connect with that and the person that you're talking to.
Awesome. And I was going to add to what April was saying about if you're following up with a phone call, or if you're giving your phone number or your email, it's really important to have a professional email address. I'm sure, being in the HR world, you guys have both seen the ones where you look and you go, do I really want to be communicating with this? Just based, and it could be an awesome person, but the email address just speaks something different. So having that professional email address, I think, is really important. Also, then with your voicemail, when someone calls you, is your mailbox going to be full, or is it going to be, hey, leave a message, bye? Having a voicemail that says who you are or something about you that's brief can really be instrumental in having somebody reach out to you and have that positive impression.
Those are really great tips. And I also want to just reinforce the effect of networking. In person, preferably, but in COVID today, I know that's a little difficult, but networking is great leverage. And LinkedIn, although I think it's becoming a lot like Facebook lately, you can still really find a lot of good leads on there, especially if they're quality leads. Like I said before, don't just dive in for the attack. Really know who you're speaking to, get to know them. It's okay to look at their profile, their history. If they like beagles, it's okay to strike up a conversation with them about beagles. Find that common interest, and you will find a friend who would be willing to, pass your name on if the opportunity arises.
I think there's something, we hear it so much about how networking and relationships really are like the base and fundamental to, our next career moves or so much. But I think we take it so much for granted, and it's really hard to genuinely make those, especially if you move to a new city. I think experience that a lot of us share on this team, getting involved with like people who are like-minded. Maybe there's like a club or something. Kayla and I are part of a fundraising professional group. Bailey, I don't know if you've joined groups where you're in your master's degree now. I mean, I'm sure you're overloaded by a lot of consumed by schoolwork, but just like getting connected to groups where you share similar interests, I think can really speak volumes. I know we're sort of towards the tail end of our meeting. We have some guests who aren't guest speakers on today's session. A few of you guys joined as guests. Is there any other questions or things you'd like to ask before we bring things to a close? Or I know you had a few, you were delayed in getting in, and Angela and Adriana, I'm not sure if you were also had tech issues, but feel free to jump in, ask a question, or maybe share some stories about your own professional development experience. I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but if feel free to unmute yourself and cut me off as I wrap up. Were there any other questions from the rest of the crew before we come to a close? Kayla, how are we looking on Facebook? Is there any questions that we need to?
Yeah, I don't see any questions.
Okay. Well, I know we talked about a lot today, and it felt like in some cases, we were talking about two different things, like we have this AmeriCorps Vista and like how to get a job, but like joining groups like a fundraising professional group or a law student group, AmeriCorps Vista brings a lot to the table with that, you know, you are bonded. I've known Bailey and Bethany for a couple years now, and I feel this sense of connection to them. And you meet AmeriCorps members, alumni, you know, kind of everywhere. And you just have this sort of like, you know, if you've ever gone to a college and you're like, oh, we went to the same school, there's this like sense of connection. So that's a big benefit that I took from it, is this networking and making lifelong friends. To wrap up, I wanted to touch on some other benefits of Vista that we haven't necessarily mentioned. As Kayla mentioned, things are virtual now, so you can become an AmeriCorps Vista from anywhere, from the safety of your own home, and you still get these really incredible benefits. Some of the big ones are like money for school. You get about $7,000 towards student loans or future schooling, and that can be used for several years. Along the same lines, you get federal loan forbearance, which basically means your student loan payments have come to a halt during the year of service, and AmeriCorps will actually pay for the interest that's accruing during that year. Of course, we've talked a lot about job experiencing and networking. Like, that's a really key piece of putting this, of being a Vista. As a Vista, wherever you serve, there's professional development opportunities on like a weekly or day-to-day basis. Vista does a great job at doing that, but also the site that you're serving on, like here at Step Up, we just earlier today, we did a PR workshop for our Vistas to give them, you know, build their skills a little bit more. There's health benefits, there's childcare benefits. Bailey, Bethany, and myself talked about the relocation allowance that you can move to a new city, a new state across the country, and they can help you move to get there. The non-competitive eligibility, abbreviated NCE, is something super cool. It's really unique. Briefly, it's basically once you complete a year of service, you get this status. So for any federal jobs after 1 year after you've completed service, you get to have this on your application. It's a part of your application, and you sort of like get pushed to the top of the list when applying to federal jobs. As we mentioned in the past, the living allowance, so AmeriCorps Vista is a paid position, though it's quite low. To give you a sense, it's around $12,500 a year. Very low, but it is a sacrifice. And I hope that everyone on the call can say that, I think, Bailey, you said it, you know, you don't regret anything about it. I think Bethany, you said it too. And I did 2 years of service, and it was difficult. Kayla's in her second year as well. But it's definitely worth it, as we can see from all these benefits. So if there's any other things we'd like to wrap up before we close, did I miss anything while I was speaking? Okay. Thank you guys so much for your time. All of our out-of-state, all of our guest speakers, thank you so much. We will make sure to share this recording with anyone who asks. You know, we can summarize and send these out, including like links for things that we've talked about. We can get them out to anyone who would like them. Well, thank you so much for your time, everyone. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen if I can get there. And I don't think I see any more. Did I miss any questions in the chat? All right, I think that's everything. Thank you for your Wednesday night. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.